everyone. For our next Ag Station, we are going to be talking about antique tools that we use in our past and what we use today. So I have a fun video of farmers talking to you, Bob Braden and Ryan Heilig, talking to you about the antique tools that farmers used way back in the day compared to what our equipment is like now that you will see out in the fields. So take a look at this video and learn something about our machinery.
Hello everyone, my name is Bob Braden and I'm a farmer in Scott County, Iowa. I live by Eldridge and I've had the privilege to farm all my life. And we are today going to speak about antique tools that were used in farming years and years ago. And the mechanisms or the industry has changed so much that we just wanted to point out some things that are different from what we do today. Back many years ago, someone invented a one-row corn planter. And this corn planter made it so much better than planting it strictly by hand because it sped it up and it allowed someone to hold what they would consider a large amount of seed compared to a handful. You would fill this container with corn seed, and then as you work the mechanism, it meters the seed out this little slot here one at a time, and then drops it down this tube, puts it in the jaws, and then as the jaws are opened up, the seed goes into the soil. So you start by having the planter loaded, walk to your first prepared soil spot, push the seeder in 2 inches in the ground, push the jaws open, the seed drops in, close your slot, move to the next place where you want to seed, and do it all over again. Now we want to talk about the plow. And a plow was used back in the old day to prepare a seed bed for our new crop. And what they were trying to do was to kill whatever was growing on top of the ground, so they wanted to turn it over, and that's what the plow did. There was a curved share is what this is called, a plowshare, and as the point would go in the ground and start cutting it, and then the curved part, as it came through the ground, would throw it over and turn it upside down, so they would have clean soil to work with their new crop. But what they needed first was something it was hard to pull. You can imagine this was not something a guy was going to push through the soil. So they would hook up horses to the front of the plow, and one or two horses would pull this plow, and then the farmer, once the horses were hooked up, the farmer would come to the back and he would guide the plow and keep it in a straight line, so that he would just go back and forth and do the right. You could only do like 10 inches at a time. So that's how they had to do that. We've got our corn grown. Now we need to process it to where we can use the kernels. And the kernels, on an ear of corn like this, there is 700 to 800 kernels on one ear of corn. So we need to get the kernels off so that we can use it either in livestock feed or whatever they wanted to use corn for. And we can do it by hand, which would be laborsome, or we can use a corn sheller. And this corn sheller, drop the ear in, turn the crank, all the kernels come off of the cob. The cob is unbroken, and then they can use the cob for any other purpose, like bedding. It's a dry, it makes a bed for their other animals.
What type of animals would that be used for the bedding?
Cattle, hogs, mainly.
And then over here, what is this?
This is just another kind, and that's another variety of corn sheller. It does the same thing. Whoops, watch your hand. Now we're here talking about a corn dryer. And the purpose of a corn dryer is to dry the kernels on the cob so that the moisture doesn't rot the kernels, and they come to the right moisture. If they sit out in the air long enough in nice dry air, they will dry to the correct moisture so that you could use the corn and shell it. So what they did was someone invented a corn dryer where the corn could be sat, and you can imagine with all these rings how many ears of corn we could put on this corn dryer. Well, the way that they would do it, first you got to put the corn on this point here, shove it in, put another one on this side, and you can hang it there. And as long as the corn wasn't touching each other, you could fill these rings full. And then as the air goes through your building, the corn would dry.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ryan Heilig with Kuhnau Implement here in DeWitt, Iowa. I farm with my dad on a small farm just west of the store. We do about 480 acres of corn and soybeans, and I'm also the precision farming specialist and a salesman here at Kuhnau's. Kuhnau Implement is a family-owned business since 1936. We've got a store in Preston, Iowa, which is the original store, and then our second store is here in DeWitt, where you guys are today. So we're going to kind of talk about different technology in agriculture. I've got a tractor set up here for you guys, a combine behind me. We're going to go talk about planters, and then we're going to show you some corn and soybean heads also. So we'll start with the tractor right here. This is a brand new Case IH Magnum 280. It's an AFS Connect Magnum. Case IH deems their technology as AFS. That's our brand name for our technology. So this tractor is jam-packed full of technology. It's the latest and the greatest. So as we step up into the cab here, you want to go first? Yep. The cab is completely redesigned. New seats, new cab interior. We've got an all-new instrument cluster over on the right-hand side of the cab. We've got an all-new display on your armrest that runs all of the tractor functions. We can run tractor functions through the armrest. A lot of them will have different interfaces. You can turn your radio up and down on the display or on the radio. New steering wheel design. So the one on the left is our clutch, and you have to push the clutch down to get into gear and get out of park. The other two are our left brake and our right brake for the left rear and the right rear tires. And then the pedal over there is essentially a gas pedal. They call it a foot inching pedal. You can run the throttle on that, as well as the throttle that you would conventionally use is right here. So I would call this your accelerator pedal in a car, kind of. But in order to make this tractor go faster, you have to shift up and shift down with your shifter. So you use a combination of gear shifts and throttle to make yourself go faster. So this tractor that we're sitting in here could be used for multiple different applications. It's a 280 horsepower tractor, and what that equates to is it is the equivalent of 280 horses. So back in the day we used to use horses to pull farm implements, and now we don't really use horses as much, so we relate our tractors in terms of horsepower. It's essentially the work of 280 horses. So we could use this tractor for planting, running an auger cart, doing some tillage, some vertical tillage. We could do some deep tillage if we had a smaller pieces of equipment. But this is, in today's standards, this is kind of a mid-sized tractor. We go all the way up to 620 horse is the largest tractor that Case makes. So this is kind of a smaller one, but this is a very practical tractor and could be used for a large variety of different things on a farm. So we're gonna fire the Magnum up. So our Case IH AFS Pro 1200 display is booting up. We've got all of our lights on our remotes that came on. We've got our A-post display over here in the corner. Shows our fuel level, engine temperature, oil pressure, what gear we're in, our miles per hour, our engine RPM is all displayed on there. These are all things that farmers would use as they're going across the field and make sure they're not running out of fuel, see what ground speed they're running.
How fast can this tractor go?
This tractor will go, this is a third, what is it? It says on the back. This one has the 30-mile-an-hour transmission. So a lot of the tractors go 25 mile an hour. A lot of the newer ones, you can option up and get a faster tractor that'll go 30 mile an hour. So here we've got our color display monitor. Most tractors, combines, all your common farm equipment is going to have some sort of color display anymore. This has all the different tractor functions in the display. We can page through to different pages and add different things onto our screen. We've got a camera on the front of the tractor and on the back of the tractor. So this is what is behind us right now, and we can toggle to the camera that's on the front. This tractor is auto guidance ready, capable. So this tractor will steer itself. Combines, tractors, sprayers, most modern day farm equipment will steer itself nowadays. So the farmer can set an AB line, it's called, going across the field, drop some points, and we would hit this auto guidance engage button right here, and the tractor will start driving itself. We can take our hands off of the wheel and it will drive to the other end of the field, turn around, we can hit our engage button, and the tractor will drive back across the field. This display is also going to be used to control different implements. So we'll go talk about a planter. So you would plug your planter into the back of this tractor, and the planter information would come up on this display screen here, and we could run the planter and change our different populations. We could fold the planter and do all the different things with the planter through this same monitor that we're going to do our auto steer with and change different tractor functions on.
So basically this is like a big iPad.
Yep, this is,
Like
it's
a
actually an Android tablet. So if you got an Android phone at home, this is basically an Android big phone tablet. And so all of these programs are apps running on here just like your cell phone. and we can develop new apps for this display to support future things. But basically, this is the heart of the tractor. This display will do everything related to tractor, as far as running remotes, running implements, running guidance lines. You can even change your air conditioner settings through this display, like your big display in your new cars that you can change your HVAC control. This display will do that. So here on the back side of the tractor, this is where an implement would hook up. This is the drawbar of the tractor, and we've got a 3-point hitch right here. There's 1, 2, 3 points, so that's why they call it a 3-point hitch. Pretty simple. We've got a PTO shaft, power takeoff, and then we've got our hydraulic remotes. So inside of these is couplers, and the hydraulics of a tractor perform different functions on planters and drills and different tillage tools. So we use hydraulics to pick things up and move things or turn things. So we would plug in our hydraulics, we would hook up our planter or our disc to either the drawbar or the 3-point hitch, and if we need to turn something on that implement, like a PTO pump or a fan or a vacuum, this PTO shaft spins really, really fast and transfers energy to whatever implement you have hooked up to run different things. So here we have a Case IH 7250 combine. For those of you who don't know what a combine is, combines go through the field and they gather different crops and they separate those crops and pull the grains or the seeds from the whole entire plant. It threshes them, and then it separates them and cleans them, and it puts the clean grain or seeds that we want to keep in a clean grain tank at the top, and it shoots all of the waste and foreign material that we don't want to keep out the back of the combine. So that's what a combine is. Around here, this combine is going to primarily be used for corn or soybeans. So when you're driving down the road and you see all the fields with very tall green crops growing, or green crops growing about to your waist or knees, those are more than likely corn and soybeans in Iowa. We also do have some alfalfa and some wheat and oats, but this guy is primarily going to be used for corn and soybeans around here. So it's going to take those crops in the front, suck them inside, and spin them around really fast and separate the grains, keep the clean grain, and take it up top in that big whopper topper it's called, and then we're going to shoot the trash out the back. And so we can take our clean grain to the elevator or feed it to cows or wherever the farmer wants to take his grain. So we'll climb up in the combine here. So inside we've got another precision farming display, kind of like our Magnum over there. We've got a whole bunch of different switches, steering wheel just like you're used to at home. We even have brakes like you're used to in a vehicle. The one thing you will not see in a combine is a gas pedal. So combines use a hydrostatic transmission. To go forward, we push forward on our joystick, and to go back, we pull back and we back the combine up. So it's a little bit different than a car. It's a lot nicer. In a combine, you speed up, slow down, you go back and forth a lot of times. So it's a lot easier to use this joystick, and all of your other controls are also on this joystick. So it's kind of a handy design. All of these buttons do mean different things, and an operator would change all of these buttons frequently throughout the day. They change different settings that make your cleaning better or speed different things up that all affect how clean the grain is. And if you look behind me through this window, this is our grain tank, and when you're combining, this grain tank would fill up, and eventually you wouldn't be able to see through the window, but this is what holds your corn or soybeans or wheat or whatever grain you're combining, stores in this tank as you're going across the field. And when that gets full, we put our auger out that sticks out to the side there. That's our auger. And we turn on our unload button, and the corn comes out of the tip of the auger and into a gravity flow wagon or a auger cart or sometimes even a semi. And that semi is used to transport that grain to town or to your bins or to a drying setup. Okay, so we got the combine fired up. We're going to put our auger in so we don't hit anything. So I'm going to pivot my spout up and we'll suck the auger in. And we'll get our steering wheel adjusted. So now, in order to move, we're going to take our parking brake off. Give it a little bit of RPMs over here. And now we're going to take our hydro handle instead of our gas pedal. We got our hydro handle and we just push it forward and we're going to start moving. And another different thing about a combine is most of your cars steer with the front tires. A combine actually steers with our rear tires. So when you're steering, my rear tires are turning right now, and the tail end of my combine is actually doing the turning. So it's kind of different to get used to that turning sensation when it's backwards. But when you've got a big corn or bean head on the front of your combine, you need to be able to turn around really sharp on the ends of the fields. And here we'll turn around and we can just turn around in a nice tight circle and go back into our crop that we're combining and straighten back out. So I'm standing next to a Brent V1300 auger cart. This is called an auger cart. This big tube on the side has an auger inside of it. So when we were just showing you on the combine how we unload our grain out that auger, we would unload the grain into an auger cart like this one, and we'd fill it all the way up full with grain. It will hold 1,300 bushels. We measure our crops in bushels. There's 56 pounds in a bushel of corn, but this will hold 1,300 bushels is the rated capacity. So we can hold a lot of corn. We'll fill it up, we'll put this auger out, and then we can dump in a semi or a grain truck or another wagon or something that goes faster down the road. This tractor and an auger cart aren't meant to go down the road with that much weight. So we use this to transfer grain from the combine to something else that can go faster on the road and haul it to town or to the bin site. We've also got really big tracks, if you'll notice on this auger cart. These are for reducing compaction. Compaction is a huge issue in fields, especially when we have a lot of rain and it doesn't dry out. These tracks greatly reduce the compaction. So compaction is weight being put down in the field and crushing that soil profile. And with bad compaction, we have poor oxygen, poor moisture infiltration. So farmers want to reduce compaction, and these tracks do a really good job of spreading the weight evenly over the surface, so we're not shoving weight down in one spot. Okay, so right here we've got a Case IH 1250 24 row planter. So you guys were watching looking at some old style corn planters at the Pioneer Village earlier, and you'd take it and you'd stick it in the ground one at a time and drop a seed. So this planter is essentially the same thing, but it's 24 of those individual pogo sticks. So here's a planter, here's a planter, here's a planter. We can do 24 rows in one pass. They're 30 inches apart from each other, and each row has a meter on it, and the meter singulates the seed. So we don't want to just dump seed on the ground. Seed does not grow very well when it's just in a pile. We want uniform spacing, even emergence out of those crops. We got to have good seed to soil contact, and we need to plant at the right depth in order for our crops to grow correctly. So this meter is going to take the seed. We'll fill this big tank full of corn or soybeans or whatever we're going to plant. We're going to fill that full of seed, and all of these tubes will transfer the seed down to every single row on this planter. And then we've got little hoppers on each row, and actually we've got some beans right here. These are some seed beans. So we've got seed beans in our row here. This meter will then turn as we're going through the field, and it's going to drop a seed every however many inches we want to drop it, depending on what population we want to plant. The seed will fall down the seed tube in between these two wheels. There's some big discs on here that open the soil up. We drop a seed down between these wheels, and then this wheel comes by and closes our trench up, and then this wheel rolls over it and firms our soil. We got to have good seed to soil contact, and that means firming the soil back up, and then that seed will grow, hopefully, is the idea behind a planter. Okay, so we've got this is a New Holland brand grain platform. So we would attach this to the front of that combine that you guys saw. It would mount on the feeder house, and it would stick out really wide in front of us. We can't go down the highway with this. We have to put it on this head cart here, haul it down the highway, attach it to the combine, and once we get it attached, we would use this to combine soybeans or wheat or oats or several other different cereal crops and such. So we've got a sickle bar on the front of this head, and there's a whole bunch. The sickle bar is a whole bunch of knives, and these knives move back and forth really, really quick, thousands and thousands of times, and they're really sharp. You don't ever want to stick your fingers in them. And this cuts off the plant really close to the ground, usually a couple inches off the ground. And then this big reel here above my head, this is going to be always spinning and pulling the crop into the head. And when it gets over the cutter bar, it will fall against this auger, and this auger is going to be turning, and the auger will draw the crop in across the head and into the center, and it will get sucked into the combine, and then the combine is going to do its job. Okay, so here we have a draper header. There's a lot of similarities between this head and the platform we just looked at. This one, however, has belts on it. So we've got our same style sickle bar here, moves back and forth really, really quick, cuts our crop really short, and then we've got a same style reel here that will be spinning and drawing crop in, but you'll notice there's no big tube running along this back of this head anymore. We've got these rubber draper belts, they're called, that they'll be running, and instead of an auger, it uses the draper belt to nice and gradually, evenly pull this crop into the middle. It drops it onto another draper belt in the center, and that sucks it up into the combine with the help of that drum there. So the advantage of this head over a regular platform is it's a lot more gentle on the crops, and so we pull that crop in more evenly. It feeds into the combine more evenly. We lose a lot less of the crop on the ground. So every time you touch a crop with a sickle bar or a reel, we're moving that crop, and when a crop is dry, it wants to fall. So we try to be as gentle as we can on the crop and bring it into the combine. So draper heads are a lot easier on crops, and you can get a lot more done in a day, and they just feed nicer into the combine and are all around a better head for doing different grains.
How many rows can you get of soybeans out of a field with this?
So this is a 35-foot draper. Most platforms, drapers and auger platforms, go in feet. Most of the time we don't measure doing soybeans in rows. A lot of times farmers will cut sideways across the beans to help them feed in better. So we would say this head does 35 feet at a time. The platform that we looked at is a 30-foot platform, so we would do 30 foot at a time. There's different sizes of heads for different sizes of combines. We can have a really small combine, and so we would need a really small head on it, like a 25-foot platform. If you have a really big combine like the one we sat in, we could put this 35-foot head, or we could even put a 45-foot head on that combine and take 45 feet in one pass. So here we have a corn head, which is another type of header. We would also mount this on the front of our combine like a bean head. They make these in different row widths. So in a corn head, we do use rows. Each one of these snoots here runs between plants. And so we'd have a row of corn coming in between these snoots and a row of corn coming in here. So this is an 8-row corn head. We can do 8 rows of corn at once. They make 6-row corn heads, 8-row corn heads, 12-row corn heads. We can have corn heads that fold up so you can go down the road with the corn head on, or you can take them off and put them on a head trailer just like the bean head. So the way the corn head works is the crop comes in between a row here, and these snoot bonnets help to keep the crop funneled in. And if your crop is laying over, sometimes corn likes to fall over if you get high winds, These snoots will help the crop slide up and direct it in to the gathering chains. So right here we got some chains with some little knobs on them, and these are spinning really fast, and the crop will come in and these gathering chains will grab the corn stalk and suck it into the deck plates here and essentially into these sharp rolling knives underneath the deck plates. So these are sharp knives there, and these are spinning downward really fast. So we're going to suck the plant straight down, and in doing so we're going to strip the ear of corn off of the plant, and it's going to get caught on these deck plates, and these deck plates can move. These ones will actually move automatically. Other heads you have to hydraulically move these deck plates in and out. And so when the ear of corn comes down, it hits on these deck plates and the rest of the plant gets sucked down, but the ear of corn stays on top of the deck plate and gets brought back to the back of the corn head to this auger, and the auger swoops the corn into the center of the head, and then it shoves it back into the combine and sucks it up in the combine.
So after watching our video of the antique tools and the modern day equipment that we use today, you saw some pretty cool antique tools compared to the modern day equipment. So I have a fun activity to help us memorize and remember which of those antique tools goes with the modern day equipment. So you have this bag right here. It's the Then and Now bag in your kit, and you can get it out, and there's going to be 6 different antique tools compared to just 4 modern day equipment. So you have, for the modern day, like we saw, was the planter, we have the combine, and then we have our field cultivator and our bin. So for example, for the modern day equipment compared to the antique, we saw this right in the beginning, and if you listen closely, this was an antique planter, and you want to match it with one of the modern day equipment. So that would be matched with our modern day planter. Planting, they could only plant 1 row at a time with this one compared to 16 rows at a time. So this is way more efficient. So you're gonna match up all of your antique tools with the modern day, and then take about 10 minutes and we'll regroup and go over the answers. All right, so after taking a couple of minutes to match up our antique tools to our modern day equipment, we are gonna go over the answers, and I actually have some antique tools here in my office, so I'm gonna show them to you and how they are used back in the day. To start off with, the one that we just covered was the planter. So this was one in the video that we saw, and it's a 1-row planter, so meaning they had to take step by step, planting 1 row at a time. And if a field is the size of a football field, that is gonna take a very long time for that farmer to plant his crops, compared to our modern day planter, which has 16 rows on it instead of just 1. So this is much more efficient. So these two are matched together. All right, so our next antique tool that I'm gonna cover is this one. You see this one? This is something that goes over your hand. Do you guys have any guesses of what this does? Take a minute to talk with your classmates, make some predictions. I have this one with me. I'm gonna put it on quick. Looks like this, has a nice V on it, and it's pretty sharp. It wraps around. This farmer donated it to me, so this is a pretty old antique tool, so I have to be pretty careful with it. What do we think this is? This is a corn husking glove. So farmers back in the day, when the corn was ready to be harvested, they would take this glove and husk the husk off of the ear of corn. So here's my example. This is an ear of corn, and this is the husk that is like surrounding the ear. And they would take their corn husking glove and they would hook it onto the husk and pull it down, exposing the ear of corn. So that's how they removed it, by this nice little V hook, and they would attach it and pull it down, exposing the ear. So that's how they removed it, with the corn husking glove. Now, if you think about this, husk is super dry and it's really sharp. It's like a sharp paper, like you could get paper cuts from this. So I asked my farmer, I said, so was this did this hurt you if you got a paper cut? And he goes, all the time. So he made this mitt that he would wear on his hand, like this, and he would protect himself and put on the glove, like this, and then it would protect his hand from getting any paper cuts from the husk. So this is also a pretty important tool. So what do we think is the modern day equipment of our corn husking glove? If you guessed the combine, you are correct. The combine takes off all the husk, goes right through these snoots, and it will suck up the corn into the machine up here. So that is now the combine. Our next antique tool that we're going to discuss is the corn knife. So this is a knife that cuts down the stalks of the corn. So it's super sharp and it's gonna cut down the stalks. What do you think is the modern day equipment of this? How would we take down the stalks now? If you guessed a combine, again, you are correct. The stalks are going to be cut off like scissors on the head of the combine, and it's gonna be sucking it into the combine, and then the ear of corn is also going to follow, and then it's going to release this corn stalk, the waste, in the back of the combine. So it just goes through the machine. So the corn knife is also now today's combine. Okay, so here's another good one. We have this, and some farmers or gardeners still use this today. This is a garden hoe. So what would farmers use this for? They use this to till up their soil. They made all the big clumps of dirt. They broke it apart with their garden hoe. What do you think is today's garden hoe? It is the field cultivator. So this is a field cultivator that is going to have very sharp V-pointing swoops that are going to tear up the soil, and it's going to break apart it and make it super fluffy for the farmers to go in and plant it with our planter, and it's going to create a nice seed bed for our crops. So this is the field cultivator. Okay, so our next antique tool that I'm going to show you is this one. What did you guys think this was paired with? What does this do? Well, I actually have one with me. Looks like this. If you can see, it has some really sharp stakes on it right here. And I have a string on this side. So they must have hung it like this. What did this do? Well, I have another example. It was an antique corn dryer. So if you can see, this is not field corn. This is completely different from the field corn that you see in the fields, and this is what it was used for, but this is for decoration. So this is actually Indian corn on here, but people use this as decoration nowadays, and this would dry out the ears of corn. So they would stick it on these stakes right in here, stick them on, and then they would leave it out in a barn for it to dry. Now they wouldn't put it outside because in case if it rained, then the ear would get all wet again and these kernels would soak up the moisture, and you want it to be dry. So they usually stored these in barns. So this is our antique corn dryer. You match it with our grain bin. So this is a grain bin, and inside the grain bin is going to be stored all the corn. So they're going to take all these little kernels off. If you see right here, all these kernels will be just single, and they're going to be stored into our bin. And then they're going to be rotated, blowing hot air on it so then it dries it out faster. So this is way more efficient to dry out your corn than letting it sit in a barn on an antique corn dryer. Our last antique tool is this one, and this one's my favorite. So what do you guys think this does? Any guesses? Well, I actually have one with me, and I'm going to demonstrate it with you right now. So this is my antique corn sheller. So this is what was in your picture. If you can see, I have an ear of corn with me. And what farmers did is they placed it inside of the corn sheller and they cranked this to remove all of the kernels off of the ear of corn. So I'm gonna do a demonstration with you and then watch closely and you'll see the kernels of the corn fall off. So I'm gonna turn it around like this. And we're watching right here, okay? So I'm gonna put my hand on top. This is the outcome. So it took off all of the kernels, the little kernels of corn, and now we just have the cob. So this is what the antique tool that the farmers used back in the day was, the corn sheller. So what is today's modern day equipment? What did you match this with? If you guessed the combine, you are correct. So the combine has many jobs, and one of them is also shelling the corn off the cob. I hope you guys enjoyed this activity today, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next activity.